I would like to introduce the newest member of my mandolin family, and this is not a mandolin. Uh, this is a uh, waldzither. That's a German word which means a zither or cittern from the forest, or a forest zither. It's made by a company called Böhm, which I'm sure I'm not pronouncing exactly right. That is spelled B-O with an umlaut, H-M. It was built in somewhere between 1906 and 1910. And some of the features are, you'll notice right away, perhaps, the tuners are very unusual for a mandolin type of instrument. They're very similar to what you would find on a Portuguese guitar. And the next thing you'll notice about this instrument and the tuners is that there is one tuner up there that doesn't have a string on it. And yet I have 8 strings on here. This is a 9-string waldzither. I would have a 9th string on there, but I don't have one heavy enough. I have a couple on order to try. Let's see what else. Oh, as far as scale is concerned, from the nut to the bridge is 18.5 inches. So that makes it into kind of a long scale mandola or a short scale octave mandolin. And when I bought this, it was on eBay, and it looked like a wreck. As a matter of fact, it was a wreck. It was filthy dirty. You'll see that it still has some of the problems. Look at that finish. It's rather scarred up. We out here in the West say it looks like it was rode hard and put up wet. But, well, for being over 100 years old, and it probably came here by way of Pony Express, it's not in terrible shape, but you can see maybe you can see, yeah, there you go. See 2 huge cracks, which I have not repaired, and I'm thinking I don't need to repair. They're cracked about as far as they're going to crack anyway. And so I thought I'd string it up and see how it sounds, and it seems to be doing okay. I'll give you a sample in a minute. The sides are rosewood. They're beat up. The back is rosewood. Again, it's beat up. Look at that buckle rash. The back of the neck is all worn out. It's got a couple of screw eyes in there to hold a strap. The peg head is chipped and broken, but it still works. And well, you know, I got it for next to nothing because it looks awful. Oh, and I was gonna show you what this looks like in relation to a regular mandolin. This is one of my nice instruments. Let's move back and see if we can get a picture of the scale here. You can see that the waldzither is considerably larger, but overall length is not much different. Let's see how it sounds. It's strung up. I put just regular mandolin strings on it, so these are a little bit loose compared to what they would be on a mandolin, and you can hear maybe a few buzzes or slappy noises, but I'm going to experiment with different strings. And just as a sample of what it sounds like, the low note is a C. That's 7 frets lower than a mandolin's low note. So, and it's tuned in fifths like a mandolin, so the top string is an A instead of an E. Now it sounds a little bit zingy up there. But listen to that sustain. Now the interesting thing is that when this was made, the original bridge is right here. That's glass. The glass bridge allowed a huge amount of treble to go through right to the soundboard, and it really sounds zingy, and it sounds like a zither, which is what it is. I made an ebony bridge, and it toned down the treble and does a good job with the bass, so it makes it, well, makes it sound more like a mandola. Let's see if I can play something. Well, not bad, not bad. It is kind of zingy, but, you know, it's a zither. It's supposed to be a little bit zingy. It really was zingy when I had this glass bridge in, but so what's different about playing this as opposed to playing the mandolin? Well, number one, this long scale length here means that the frets up here at towards the nut are quite far apart. Number two, the neck is quite wide, and so what that means is that you have really got to stretch your fingers to get to where you normally expect to get on a mandolin. So, for instance, there's a two-finger G chord on a mandolin. It's a C chord on the mandola. So there's a two-finger chord, and there it is with three fingers. But I challenge people. I don't know if anybody can do this, but I certainly can't do it. Make a chop chord, a four-finger chord on that, and you know, that means this finger right here has got to come all the way down to here and maintain these three fingers in position. Well, that's about what I can get. So the distance factor is something that you got to get used to, and it's not just making chop chords, but it's just reaching for notes up here, especially up on the 5th fret and beyond. When you reach for them, you miss because it's a lot longer stretch than you're accustomed to. Number one, that's one problem. And another I'm finding is that a mandolin, the strings are so close together that you play it by bringing your left-hand fingers right down onto the fretboard. If you do that on this instrument, at least the way it is now with these strings, there's a tendency to stretch those strings. So you get something, instead of a nice note like this, it's very easy to stretch it sharp. And this is especially pronounced over here on the bass string because it's a little bit looser than the others, number one. And number two, you've got to stretch over farther, and there's a tendency to push that string. So instead of getting a, you tend to go, and you get a thunky sharp note out of the bass strings. I am thinking that if I tighten these strings up a bit so that I go 1 fret higher or 2 frets higher by retuning them, I would make it less likely to stretch out of tune, and I would also make it less likely to have those floppy strings, which would be nice. And if I don't want to do that, then the alternative would be to get a heavier set of strings. So I'll be doing some experimentation with the strings. Anything else that I can think of? Well, okay, one thing. This thing does tune just like a mandolin, and I tend to play it, so far anyway. I read the notes as if I'm playing a mandolin, and I'm really playing 7 half tones lower than what the notes say I'm playing. Now, if I had to play with other people, then I couldn't do that because they'd be playing a different key from me. So if you're going to do this, if you're going to play a mandola and play with other people, you've got to learn other ways to play something in the same key with them. This may sound a little bit confusing, but it's really not. The problem is that if I want to play something in the same key with a mandolin, very quickly I'm going to run out of strings up here on the high end, and I'm going to have to start playing up the neck. And I'm not skillful enough to do that, number one. And number two, this instrument does have a little bit of a bow in the neck, and when I start getting up, I start getting buzzy notes, or some notes won't sound at all. So this is my Böhm waldzither, and I'm gonna enjoy messing around with it. I am sure thinking this was a bargain at $52 plus shipping, which is what it cost me so far anyway.